For one, it was years ago. Two, I don't remember if it had a label on it or not. Three, I don't remember details very well in general. I have more of a conceptual understanding of things. So for me to remember detail like that, I really have to focus on it
But you
or
understand that
repetitively remember
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
And what does it matter if it was distilled or not? How does that
Well,
play a
it's
Relevant.
kind of
factor?
weird that this event happened and it was such a significant event that you sort of this event that is so unusual and you don't seem to remember a lot of details about it. I think that if that
I don't
happens
remember a lot of
again,
details about anything.
I mean, so
then so
I remember a gist. Have you ever heard of statistical learning and perception? That is like how I focus. I'm very good at predicting what's going to happen,
okay.
but that conflicts with information inside the hippocampus, so you can't store the details of memories. Look it up.
Yeah, memories don't work like that.
So you don't store details about memories, but you're absolutely sure this person vanished and you just didn't store the
No, no, no.
details of them going
I
away.
store the gist, the
The
understanding. I
gist.
don't recall, like, I don't know what color his shirt was, but I know that I was with a man. I don't remember if there was a label on the bottle of water, but I know it was a bottle of water. Like, I'm not going to get to the nitty-gritty details and remember that shit.
I guess like I can't obviously I wasn't there. I've got no idea what happened, like
You could have been in
I
shock
don't
too. That's what happens.
well, I mean, I will take Sarah's word that she wasn't in shock and she wasn't, stressed or unduly traumatized or anything of the sort, right? It's
It was just
just
a car malfunction. Why would I be in such a state when there are
Oh no!
multiple
After
people
after
around me
after
and I had a
the
car or phone
well,
on
that
me?
would stress me out.
after the angel disappeared, you could go in a state of shock. It just happened to me with my daughter fell off the bed. I witnessed this whole thing happen, but my brain I know the whole so I know what you're talking about. I know the whole concept of what happened, but this scorpion fall that she did on her neck, I can't remember exactly what it looked like, but I remember the whole idea of it. It was crazy. It just happened
Well, I guess
a
the
week
point that
ago.
I'm getting at is that I wasn't there and I don't know what happened. And I don't doubt that an event happened to you. But how do we get at what it actually was? And if your memory is giving you the correct sequence of events that in fact occurred, how do we pierce that veil?
I mean, you
We
can't. You're
don't.
literally asking someone
Yeah,
to use their memory to figure out if their memory is working.
right, right.
You can't.
And
So I
and
don't
if we
necessarily see the point of the question then.
well, then why believe that it was an angel that this
Again,
series of
so
events
Because
actually
I've had
occurred?
multiple experiences that go beyond what anything can be explained. Okay, so this wasn't the first experience. This was actually quite normal for me. I have these experiences all the fucking time. So for me to say, "Oh, an angel just helped me," didn't put me into a state of, "Holy fuck, is this real? What's happening?" Like I was like, "Oh, I just met an angel. Sweet." And I went on with my day.
Well, Sarah, this is my point, and Mark, I'm curious to your thoughts on this because
Yeah.
this what bothers me about this whole thing is I've had all these experiences that I can't explain, but I'm gonna call them X, and I'm gonna hold that position until I'm proven otherwise. It's no different than you can't prove God doesn't exist. So I'm gonna I mean this it just
That is
okay.
it
literally
doesn't
Yeah,
how
seem
that's
like
She's
science
referring. She
does
wait,
was
it.
referring
wait,
to demons and angels.
wait,
The
everybody, hold
difference.
on.
that's
Okay,
Hold
is
on
that
a
a
second.
science
good
But
literally
I'm
does
not
the same
sure.
thing.
Time
Okay, they
out, time
come
out,
to
Richard's calling
time
for
out,
timeout. Everybody,
time
just
out.
yeah.
I just want to point a few things out. Sarah did not necessarily and can decline without shame at any time, did not come in to do this. Okay? Uh, Sean, you've said the same thing like 3 times so far, and which means you feel like you're probably frustrated. It's not getting through. Nobody's answering you. To Steel Man, the explanation of Batman, she's adopted a label. It works for now. It's not really a big deal. She might as well have just said interdimensional being
Sure.
instead of angel, except for, as Mark pointed out, the luggage attached to the term. By the way, early in the show, she dumped all that luggage.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's just that it does come with connotations. That's my only point, and it's fine. Like
Yeah,
like I
Mark,
said,
but
words don't have intrinsic meanings. Like if you're using angel to describe a person who is a a nice person that helps you out, just mundane, you can do that. Like that's not a problem in language. It's just to me that word comes with some connotations. And if Sarah, if you're being clear that you don't know what it is, I accept that. I totally accept that, and you can use angel all you like.
no,
I just yeah.
it's reasonable. It's reasonable based on how, just in general, how we humans,
What's
right?
reasonable?
Just
Sorry,
just
Batman. I don't understand what's reasonable.
I'm just saying the way her saying that it's an angel, right? That is solely based
Are you talking about
on
her
prior
definition or an angel as in God's messenger definition?
her definition,
Sure, sure,
whatever, however she describes
sure.
an angel, right? But the point is, let's say, you know what? Let's just say she believes, there's a multiverse, right? And she believes that she's seen other people from different universes, but the way how they manifest might have a slight tinge to them or whatever, right? And let's say the same incident happens and this man has the same tinge, right? But he disappears. So now she could interpret that as like, okay, well, he went back to his original universe, his home universe, right? She's going, because of her prior, ideas, right? I think it's reasonable for her to come to that conclusion and be like, hey, you know what? I believe this is one of those people that I've had consistent experiences with, right? However, I might be wrong, and so therefore I'm just going to keep this belief until I see, otherwise, right, or see evidence otherwise. I think that's something that humans do in general. We come to conclusions based on our understanding of phenomena, right, and we give it a label, right, and if we come to, you know, evidence to suggest otherwise, right, then guess what we do? We make the correction. And that's basically what she's saying.
Well, I think there's a fault there, and the fault is confirmation bias. Like, if you're going to believe things until it's proven not true, you can always find that thing to believe because it reinforces your own bias that you started with. So,
Yeah,
for
sure. But
instance, the
everyone has that.
scientific method sort of tries to alleviate that. It tries to falsify things for a very
That's
good
not
reason. And the reason is because it eliminates confirmation bias. If you're actually looking to
that's not
demonstrate
true at
that
all,
there is
Mark.
what. Okay, well, how's it not
You
true?
came into the show and your first example was dark matter.
Sure.
Dark matter is a prime example of making up something that you can't explain. And the only reason why you have that term is because it's to explain something that you observe that you can't explain.
What is dark
I
matter?
get your, I understand your premise behind it, but
Is
I
dark.
got to push back on the anti-theist.
What is
I
dark
mean,
matter?
by definition, you observe something that can't be explained through the natural world,
Uh huh.
especially through the science that came before it,
Mm-hmm.
and the immediate reaction is
Yeah.
to just give it a definition. You might as well call it an angel because you
Like
have no freaking clue what it is.
label it what? Dark matter. And what is dark matter?
Dark matter. It's a made up thing that scientists
That's not the
use
definition
to
of
explain
dark
something they
matter.
don't understand.
It's an
That's a
unknown.
good that's a good one.
It's literally its definition is an unknown.
But you just said a second ago that that's a bad way to conduct progress towards knowledge.
So, how is saying that something is unknown, like for instance a UFO, unidentified flying object, right? So this is the label that we gave thing, and UFOs weren't necessarily, well, this thing is an alien. That was a popularist kind of addition to the UFO. All it meant is this thing is an unknown, and dark matter and dark energy are the same. We're basically saying we think something is there, but it
Okay.
is an unknown. We are acknowledging that we don't know what it is.
Mark,
You're
that's
going
a
to call
great,
it
that's a
dark
perfect
matter
P-Town.
until you don't know until you find out what it is.
Right.
So
P-Town, you're
if you
just repeating
So
until
yourself,
something
bro.
is proved
so what we don't know.
differently.
P-Town. P-Town, take a break. Hold on. Mark gave a
Yeah.
really good example there. Peace and respect, Jenna. Thanks for the first
Jenna.
time on the show. Welcome.
Hey.
Mark gave a really good example where dark matter refers to like a black box. It's a thing you can't see, but simultaneously it must be there. And again, he did it again with the UFO. We see this phenomena. We don't know what's causing the phenomena,
Right.
and we need a commonality of term for it. But if you would accept that Sarah is only using commonality of term,
Yeah.
and is not accepting the baggage that goes with that common term, then we can move forward in the
absolutely.
conversation.
No, if she means angel to mean an unknown charitable event or phenomenon that helps her in her life, I'm fine with that. That's fine.
Hey,
That's up to Sarah.
I think that's
That's
irrelevant.
entirely up to you.
I think it's
Why is that irrelevant?
I think all of that. I think it's irrelevant because again, right? We humans use specific methods as to how we come to certain conclusions about what we experience.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Sure. The science.
That's methodology.
Science
yes.
takes that. Yes, it's a specific methodology that's used in science.
Yes.
Right? But at the end of the day, that evolved from something that we've already been doing forever.
What's
Right? The only difference is, right, like you rightly said, is that the scientific method is developed in such a way to get rid of bias and personal experience. Right? That's
Sure.
why testing, do repeatable testing to make sure whatever you're testing for, it can be repeated, stuff like that. Right?
Yeah.
Like I understand that, but what my point is, right, is that it's basically the same thing, except that when you don't have access to another person's experience, right,
Mhm.
you can't repeat that and test it. You see what I'm saying? And so, just like in our everyday interaction, right, we take that experience, our brains make sense of it, right? And once our brain makes sense of it, right, then we go with the conclusion that our brain comes up with. Now, sure, there is bias because we all have different experiences. However, like Sarah said, I think it's reasonable to say, okay, if I see evidence to suggest otherwise, then I will change my mind. But for now, this is what I believe.
So you've sort of
How is
shifted.
that unreasonable?
Well, you've
I
shifted the
believe
goalposts. You've shifted
I
the
believe
goalposts
it was an
completely.
angel. I do not know if it was an angel.
Right. That's
Let's stop
okay.
it right there and
That's
pause
it.
for the
That's it.
newcomers
Sure.
and allow the floor, a little bit of floor. They came in for some reason, I assume. I don't know what that reason would be. Jenna,
Jenna is
and then
crazy.
Simus, and then Simus Funk to follow her, please.
Oh, I made my point clear. I was just here because Marguerite is here. Hi, Marguerite.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm just saying. No, I've had my tidbits in the chat more or less, and I think we're still driving at the same point. It's for me personally, it's a little exhausting, but I'm not disagreeing with what Batman, Mark, Sean, James, anyone is really saying for that matter. It's just, it's kind of exhausting. That's all.
I
It
tell
just
you what,
seems
though, Jenna, that
repetitive.
hair is absolutely amazing.
Fire.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are.
And-
Stunning. I'll grant that.
hello, everybody. I'm here because Jenna's here. Hello.
I appreciate that.
It's a conga
That's
line.
okay. Yeah, that's a big conga line. And obviously, I'm Mark. And it's nice to see everyone. Hello, Odin. Good to see you as well. Thank you for letting me
Richard,
on.
Me too, right?
And
right?
say again. Sorry, Peter.
You're-
No,
You're
I didn't mean to
right.
cut you off, Simus.
Well, I'd like to make
So-
the point about
Yeah, go ahead.
the goalpost shifting. So you sort of went to you can't repeat
Come on,
it and
Mark.
test it kind of thing. What's your problem, Peter?
We've been on this one for like 45 minutes.
Well, I
He
only
just keeps
got
getting
here.
attacked, Mark.
I just got here. Like I don't know.
You just don't like the word angel or anything that has anything to do with God.
Didn't I make
That's
it
not the
very
point.
clear that they could use the word angel if they want, if they're not?
Sure, as long as the word angel doesn't mean angel. I know you made your point.
Well,
Then you're okay with it.
Okay, all right, that's sounding combative for no
Yeah.
apparent
I
reason.
don't know.
It
Pete
is.
sounds just mad, I guess. So
Well,
the
what
goal
does
the goalpost
what's
shifting is basically saying you can't repeat it and test, but that wasn't what we were talking about. What we were talking about is it a reasonable methodology, a way to get to the truth, to believe something until it's proved false, or is it more reasonable to believe something when it's proved true? And I'll put it to you that it's way more reasonable to wait until you have proof and then believe it. Because if you're going to believe something until it's proved false, once you believe it, you're not going to look to falsify it. You're just
Are
going
you
to
talking
say,
about
hey,
evolution
that is
and the
the.
Big Bang,
I
or
wasn't finished.
Sure,
We
absolutely.
cannot prove anything true. We can have probabilities of something being true to a very close proximity of 100%, but we do not know anything for fact as absolutely true.
Well,
So
that's true. I just want
even
to
science
clarify.
cannot
Sorry,
say
Sarah.
this is true
I just
until proven.
I
I
just
mean,
want to
everything that we
clarify.
consider
I'm just
scientific
using
fact
proof
is proven
colloquially. I'm not
sooner.
using proof as in 100% certainty here. I'm just using it colloquially. All right. So if you want me to switch to sort of more technical, yes, we can't
Well, you're
100%.
wanting me to switch my word angel to mean something more technically that fits your vocabulary. So
No, I thought you said
I,
angel
I
was
mean,
sort of a
I
placeholder.
believe it was an angel because of my experience and my understanding and what I consider an angel to be.
Okay.
I do not know for a fact if it was an angel, and I have no way to prove it was or was not.
All right, so I'm a
I have no
little
way to prove
confused then,
anything.
because when you said angel, it seemed to me, and I might be mistaken, it seemed to me it was more a placeholder word that didn't come with all of the religiosity kind of background to it. So are you saying it does come with that?
I'm saying it comes with all that background because I do not believe it was a human being. I don't think it was a hallucination or I just didn't see the guy drive away. I think it was a literal angel that comes with all that baggage. I do
Okay.
not know for a fact if it was or it was not. I have no way of proving it. We cannot go back and find that guy. This is an argument that is going to go nowhere because no one can prove anything either way. That is my belief. No matter what you say, it will not change a belief. But if we can find evidence or I have other experiences that I can tack on to the information that I have to gain my understanding and reach a new conclusion, then I may change it from being an angel to something else. But until that happens, I am going to believe it is an angel.
Well, we can't really go back and look, but what we're looking at is whether the epistemology is good. So the reasons behind why you believe that to be an angel. What sort of facts do we see that would lead us to that conclusion? So I think from an epistemological basis, you saw a person, they helped you out in a time of crisis, and then they vanished. It doesn't sort of, there's not a lot of evidence there in a vacuum to point towards angel rather than interdimensional being or a roaming magician or any other explanation you may give. It seems to
Okay,
me,
then call it an alien if that makes you feel better.
but you
I
said
don't care what you call it. I'm calling it an angel because that's what I believe it is.
but you said it came with the background of religiosity
Yes,
and
because that's what I believe it is.
but
You do not
I'm trying to
believe
get at
that. Okay,
why you go down that route.
because I believe in God, because I've had
Right.
multiple experiences, because I have clairvoyance, because I have claircognition, because I have lots of other things that say, okay, the spiritual world is real.
You have
You may not have
clairvoyance.
those experiences, so you may not be able to make that leap that angels exist and want additional proof because you don't have the experience or you don't have the scientific evidence that you can repeat or you're explaining it away by some medical reason or the brain malfunctioning.
Mhm.
I, I believe it was an angel because of multiple experiences in my life and my belief system.
So let's talk about this clairvoyance that you have, because that fascinates
Mhm.
me. So you can see things happening in other places. Am I getting that right,
There
or
are
is it?
multiple variations of clairvoyance. Most of my clairvoyance is being able to predict the future, but it's not a total sight. comes with more of a knowing. I will give you an example. It is a very sad and tragic example, but usually mine is associated with people that are dying. Um,
And what do you predict?
I basically get a wave of panic that hits me, and it comes with a knowing. And
A knowing of what?
okay, I'm going to give very personal information here. I
Well, you
probably
don't
won't
have
want
to.
to go into
You
Just
certainly shouldn't do that
Yeah,
if you're not
double
safe.
double think that first, and then proceed if you want to.
yeah, don't release
Could you
Well,
information.
just
you want an example
change
of
the names and
clairvoyance.
places? Just change the names and
Oh, no,
places.
it's not a name. It's not personal like that. Not like identifiable thing that you can use
Okay.
to steal not that kind of personal, like personal experience to me. Okay, my brother killed himself, and I knew when he was in the process of doing it, even though he didn't tell anyone, he didn't say anything. I felt it. I got the knowing that came with me, and I called my parents at like 2:30 in the morning and told them to check on my family. Okay, and they found him. He did not call me. He did not tell me. We did not know this was coming. Okay, that is a clairvoyance that came with a knowing, a clear cognizance, where I just knew, and I had to call, and they found my brother. Okay, that is an example.
Okay, I've got a couple questions, Sarah, and you can decline any question at any time because these things are very emotionally charged. I'm sure they are for you. Did you know it was going to be your brother?
No, I actually
Did you
thought it
know?
was my sister. My brother was in the room over from her. I got
Your
it wrong.
sister and brother were in the same house.
Yes, he was in the room over.
Is that because they were in their youth?
I have no idea. I mean, they were both living with my parents, so yeah, they were younger. If that's
Okay. Okay, just curious about that part. And did you know how this person was going to die?
No, I just knew
Did
he
you have
was in trouble. I didn't
you,
know how he was in trouble. I didn't know how he was going to do it. I just knew he was in trouble.
But you
so
thought it was
so
somebody
you
else.
got
Well,
you thought it could have been someone else.
when I got the wave of panic, I was listening to a voicemail from my sister. I associated the panic with my sister and had my parents check on my sister. My brother was in the room next to her, and it was my brother who was actually the one in trouble.
Okay. And you said you had a wave of panic. And how many times have you had a wave of panic
Multiple
and
times.
you have appropriately called the right people the panic should be attached to, and there was a panic type situation, a high stress situation with those people, and have you looked for failures in that where you got negative results from the same kind of feeling and panic?
I have never gotten it 100% correct. So when I said it's not always clear sight, this is what I mean. It's very difficult to understand when you receive information.
Just
I've never gotten it
okay.
100% correct.
Just a ballpark
But
figure, Sarah. What percentage do you think, roughly, that you get correct, kind of thing?
I basically
me-
get the gist of it correct. I know there's a problem. I know the general area of where it's located, and I know that it's usually catastrophic. I don't really get the specifics. I'm not told exactly who it is. I'm not told how it happens. I'm not even told where. Usually I have to pick up with outside information to kind of make the connections.
So,
Okay.
How is that different than just basic intuition? How does it work differently?
It's very, very,
Some
it's very
some people
similar.
have those gifts.
Yeah, it's
Right.
very, very similar. Intuition is you're usually interacting with it right then and there. He was in a completely different city from me. How am I picking up on him without picking up on the spiritual world, the ethereal realm?
Well,
And I just-
yeah, sorry, Jenna, go ahead.
Oh no, just a point of clarification because you referenced you had a voice because you weren't clear if whether it was either one of your siblings, and you said you had a voicemail from your sister. Thus, that initiated the panic?
I don't remember if it started before or after. I just experienced the panic while I was listening to the voicemail, and that's why I made this association. The
Okay.
association was wrong because it was not my sister, it was my brother.
Okay. No, that was just what I was trying to make clear, because if from what you just said, you experienced the panic while listening to the voicemail.
hmm
Okay.
Okay, so it's been my experience, and I've had similar experience to this, and I've seen other people have similar experience to this.
hmm
I have a sibling who woke from the night's sleep, told of a nightmare. 2 hours later, the sibling in the nightmare called, confirming everything in the nightmare was true. So things like that. But I think my identifying questions as to how much of this is imagination and how much of this is real is, first of all, do you look to disconfirm things? That is, do you try to disprove them? For instance, are you looking always for a miss? That a time that it didn't work? You have to, if you're going to be honest, you have to always look for how many times it missed to keep track of it. You can't just keep track of positive hits, because you're going to eventually get a positive hit in something somewhere sometime. And that's just deeply biased. So I would ask a question like, how many times have you had this kind of a feeling and called the wrong number, went to the wrong place, talked to the wrong people?
Or nothing was wrong at all, and it was just a feeling.
Or nothing was wrong at all, yeah.
Well, there's also something when we have death in the family. So, like when my dad died, they called me. I was woken up with a phone call. They called me, and I forget the word. Like I forget what she said. It was either like they're working on him or they're on their way to work on him. It was like one of the neighbors, but everything becomes real um tense, right? Until you get there, and then he passed away. But at some point, maybe I'd convinced myself that he'd already died, or on the way, I could easily say, like, I knew when he died, or I had this terrible feeling, or all this panic. And it's really hard to, like, for me to realize, like, at what point when I woke up, did I wake up before the phone call and know that my father was dying? Did I know on the way out there? Or just looking back on it, am I like
Misremembering.
yeah,
Yeah,
not even misremembering sometimes, Richard, but you like posit certain things into that memory. Like
sure.
not even, you know what I mean? That maybe you felt, and then you kind of go, oh, looking back on it, you say, oh, well, I knew this, right? Like I knew it wasn't just a heart attack, or I knew that he didn't die of a heart attack. It was X, and then the autopsy
Right.
showed that it wasn't a heart attack. So I can say all these things, but
Sure.
did I really
Well,
know it wasn't a heart attack, or did I just think
this
my
is
dad
why I
was?
suggest to people they take really good, super definitive timestamp notes. You never let it be subject to your memory. You can't do that.
Yeah. And it also could be like to your absolute 100% recollection of the event. All events could have been 100% true. You may be just placing them at the wrong timing to make it not balance outright, or to make that
Our
story
brain can do that.
So
right.
you're
Yes.
telling me that I called my parents before my brother killed himself
I
because
didn't say that at all. No.
because I'm misremembering what happened?
No. I'm not assuming or saying that at all. Like I had asked, do you recall when you started feeling the panic? Because the whole point of clairvoyance, per you, is you
It was about
having
4 hours before he did it. He hadn't even done it yet. But my
Okay.
parents checked on my sister and went back to bed, and I got a call in the morning when they found him. He had taken the phone off the hook after I'd called. So if I called again, it would not ring.
Can I just say I'm so sorry to hear that, Sarah? That's absolutely tragic, and
Honestly,
my
yes,
heart
that
goes
is
out to you. That's
absolutely tragic.
yes.
Yeah.
Mark, your mic's doing that thing
I got
again where it
I
hums.
got it.
Yeah,
I
your
got it.
mic's been doing that last. Okay.
I got it. Speak, Mark.
Speak.
Just say any sentence.
Any sentence.
One more hit.
One more hit.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. I do apologize. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, I really feel for you, and I guess the problem that I have is with all of these sort of these uh, phenomenon that appear to be um, um, supernatural in origin, or somehow a product of a higher level of mind, or a product of some kind of extrasensory perception. When we've gone to investigate that with sort of objective tools at our disposal, we can't seem to find it. And maybe that's a limitation of science. Maybe it just cannot pierce that veil of the extrasensory perception. But I think I would believe that when it's demonstrated to be true.
So in quantum physics, okay, which completely contradicts classical physics,
Right.
we can only come up with probabilities because it cannot be observed in its natural state. And once we become the observer, it takes it. Not very
That's okay.
well
Yeah,
spoken.
yeah. So basically, it's in a
They only know
probabilistic
where it
state.
lands once it becomes observable. When
Right.
it's no
Right.
longer.
The
So
observer effect.
you're asking for it to be observable, but it physically cannot be observed in that state. God's kingdom, the ethereal world, the quantum world,
Well, the quantum world
cannot
can be
be
observed.
observed.
Like we've got like the double slit experiment and things like that, where we can see the effects of this probabilistic
Yes,
state.
but not the actual thing.
Right. So even though we may not be able to see or pierce the supernatural world, we can still observe the effects objectively.
I would say that effect would
on-
be my sensations and the emotions and the feel, like that was an effect of me experiencing the quantum
Right.
world.
But when we've gone and actually used a controlled setting for people saying they have these abilities, what we don't see is any actual
I do not
effect.
have control over this. I cannot predict
understand
when
that.
it happens.
Yeah, I
If you ask
understand
me
that.
to predict your future,
Richard.
I cannot do that.
I
It
understand
cannot
that.
be done in a controlled setting.
Well, I
And I actually
understand that.
think that might be done that way purposefully, so you cannot find God through science
Why
in that
not?
manner.
Why wouldn't God want that?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I have some
Richard.
suggestions to answer. Go ahead, P-Town. It's killing you. I
go
can
ahead,
tell.
Peter.
Well, you said earlier that I could come back and we'll do the Adam to Noah thing. We got plenty of atheists on the panel. I think it'd be a fun thing to do.
Okay,
Well,
well,
if I could,
I really was promising you to do that as a separate show because this is more of an open panel discussion.
Well, it would be much more objective if we had guys like Mark or everyone else here, pretty much, except for
There's a pretty
Sarah.
good chance we'll have a good number of those people again in the side chat to tell me why I'm stupid
Okay.
or why you're stupid or whatever. I mean, they'll be
No,
available
I'm
again.
just doing the.
I don't think we've got long enough now, have we?
Probably not. No.
Could I just say something about quantum mechanics there? So no, we can observe quantum mechanics. It's particular. It is completely scientific and also completely consistent with empiricism. When we do the double slit experiment, you can see a diffraction pattern. That is the demonstration of quantum mechanics. When we do, I don't know, the Casimir, is it called Casimir effect? You can do an experiment to show that virtual particles are really being brought into existence and then negating themselves and disappearing from existence. I mean, it's perfectly noticeable. Computers are a very good example of quantum mechanics working. Plants, another good example of quantum mechanics working. So no, there's nothing which is not scientific about it or unobservable. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Plants, you're talking about the way that particles jump from outside to inside, right?
Well, photosynthesis it's called, yeah.
Yeah,
Photo-
gotcha.
yeah. And how it has to be on a certain path and it couldn't have gotten there any other path, although the paths appear to be random. They're actually not random in reality, something like that. Okay.
I won't go into details because it's quite boring.
No, that's fair.
But
That's fair.
I find it fascinating myself.
these
But yeah,
are quantum mechanical effects that we witness in
Right.
the real world through empiricism and through scientific testing.
and from what I understand, barcode reading is also a quantum effect that we use on a daily basis. So it's that kind of dependable. If that's a good example. Okay, so we may not know the mechanism for, but we can speak to the necessity of, like the term UFO. We see the effect. We do not know the explanation of the effect. We're okay with that for now. We're going to do further investigation. Hopefully someday we find out the cause for the effect, but we definitely see the effect. U.S. Navy has film footage of object unidentified doing weird stuff, and
Well,
it's
they've
real
changed
film
the
footage.
name now. Do you remember the new name they've got for it? It's like
Aerial phenomena or something like that.
Yeah. It's like unknown
Yeah.
aerial UAP, maybe unknown aerial.
Yeah, but I'm turning 55 this year. It's a UFO.
Okay, cool.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're wanting to call it, and I'm not willing to change.
But
Okay, so
I guess with the
Go ahead.
same methodology, I guess my point would be is because we label it a UFO, that's not a reason to think aliens without evidence of aliens.
Right.
That's my opinion.
it's not.
Right.
No, that's spot on. That's spot on. Which is why I go directly to the argument from information. And for those of us who are unfamiliar in this talk right now, there's three forms of what is called information. There's raw data points, then there's complexity of raw data points or Shannon information, and then there's information which translates an idea. When I say information, I'm talking about translating ideas. What the? My darkened understanding, why are you in twice? You're
Probably
not.
a computer and a phone or
Two
something.
devices.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you trying to share screen or something?
That doesn't really explain
Nope.
why.
He's switching out. Batteries going out.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you come back in, we'll bring you back in. All right.
I
So
think Richard's pointing more to why are you doing this rather than, how are you doing this kind of thing.
actually, I put a link for StreamYard in the top of the chat, and I know what happens. Let's give it no more further recognition than that, and just move on with the conversation. So this is exactly why I go directly to an argument from information, because definitionally information is something that happens between two conscious minds. Now I might not know what is translating the information, okay? For instance, say 400 years ago, what's that?
Slow down, Mark.
Sorry. No, my bad. Finish and I'll
He's
write that.
given a definition. We can criticize it or not later.
Right. For instance, if someone in the days of Ezekiel heard two people talking over shortwave radio, they wouldn't have understood what was going on. Okay? But there would still be a transfer of information there that could be shown. And then if the information is true in reality, then it's knowledge. By my definition of what is knowledge, that is necessarily true in the reality around us. So if I receive an idea into my head from outside of my experience necessarily, like I know something is behind a building that I've never walked behind, and it's a certain thing by a specific description at a certain angle, at a certain distance from this other thing, like someone had walked back there and taken a picture and then stuck the picture in my picture slot in the side of my head, and there I have this picture out of nowhere, right? That's testable and falsifiable, and if it holds in reality, then it's true. But the greater question is, how did I know that without someone like in my physical presence telling me that, or me having experienced it myself? And the floor is anyone's.
Well, that sounds like a tree falls in the forest kind of thing. But the whole thing about information that I was going to bring up was, if you've got a sensor that sends, signals to a computer system responsible for controlling the environment or something, I would probably still consider that information. Would you consider that information?
I don't know. Was there a programmer?
Well, yeah, but the information is sort of what the sensor is taking out of the atmosphere, so it's sort of like new data that we're talking about. It's not stuff that's programmed in.
Well,
the sensor is taking.
We can give a slightly better example, can't we? Something like a photon hitting a leaf.
Or the Bible.
I think a photon hitting a leaf is not information by the definition I'm trying to use.
Okay, then it's not Shannon information.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
data points, and it's not Shannon, and it's not complexity or likelihood. It's nothing like that. It's the fact that I can form a sentence in English and Mark can understand it.
Right. So
Right.
that's, I mean, obviously, you know, when
Well,
you
that's
say form a
debatable.
sentence, then when you say a sentence, then you are, of course, assuming that the sentence can be understood. Why do you
Right.
assume that? Because you are talking to something that you know has agency,
Right.
right?
That's,
So
Right.
you're
We're
begging the
using.
question. You're begging the question
Okay.
of agency.
I love
I'm
Christian
begging the
sort of thinks
question
so
of
far.
agency. I have no examples of non-agency in
Well, when
complex
that's
information transfer.
yeah, but when you say complex information transfer,
Sure.
okay, that's you are including in that phrase agency, right? That's part of the definition.
Well, he
Okay,
says
help me with the
conscious mind.
language.
So an
Well,
agent is somebody with a thinking mind capable of making decisions, essentially.
yeah. So you know, it's what's
Anything
okay.
with a
So
thinking mind able
there's
to make decisions. But my
two different
example
ways.
with information from a sensor to a computer is there's no agent involved in that.
There's
Does that
no
make sense?
agent involved in it.
Yeah.
I mean, a computer could record.
Sure.
It can even transmit.
Yeah.
So it's temporary storage.
Sure.
But what's on my screen right now has no meaning if there's no one on this end to look at it.
Okay. No, that's what I wanted to clarify, because I would still
Yeah.
consider information to be the signals that the sensor is sending to the computer, even though no conscious mind ever sees that. Like, just say the computer wipes it two weeks later and no one has ever looked
Right.
at it. I would still consider
Right.
that information, even though it's
But I have
never passed through
Oh,
a
sorry.
conscious mind at all.
I have a question. Wouldn't it have to be in a specific arrangement or sequence?
Yes, it does have to be. Even the individual nuanced noises I'm making with vocal cords and small mouth movements is definitively you could break it down in lots of little tiny pieces. You could, but if you rearrange them in some other way than I'm using them, it'll just be rubbish.
Yes, but
Right.
but wouldn't you say then that it's not necessarily it being information is not contingent on someone there to understand it or to translate it necessarily?
Okay, so it's going to be data points, Shannon complexity, and information, and that's why I'm using those terms that way.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, so again, when you say this complex information, I just want to know that you've baked in consciousness to that as part of the definition, right? So you
I
can
don't know
never
how to avoid
you
it.
can never say. Well, I mean, there are other types of information, right? So if you're speaking to somebody in a language you don't understand, you'd still call that information, but you can't understand it.
Can I make
So
an
it's
analogy?
unintelligible.
I'll make
Hang
an
on a second, Mark.
analogy. Oh, okay,
Hang
sure,
on a
sorry.
second, Mark.
Yeah.
Because there's one other point I want to get to
Sure,
once
sure,
we got
sorry.
past this little bit. You get that, right?
Maybe.
It's
I'm
still
trying.
information. You can't understand it. So information doesn't have to be understood to be information, even under your own definition.
Is that the end of it? Because I
No,
was hoping
that's
for
not.
more.
I just want you to agree with that point first, and then we
I
can move to
can't.
the next point.
I don't.
Right. Okay. So if somebody speaks Japanese to you,
Yeah,
you would admit that they think they're passing information to you,
they might
right? But it's not
if they're
information.
if they're
So it's
under the
not
impression
inherently
that I understand that language, they might think they're talking to me.
sure. Right. So
I
it's
might
not
have.
inherent. So what you're doing, right, is it's not inherent in the actual passing of information. What you're saying is information is received by a conscious being.
Yes, I am.
So,
Right. Okay, that's great. In that case, to get to the point quickly, there is a particular type of definition which excludes science. Okay, which is what's called axiological, which just means agency. Okay, an
Okay.
explanation that includes agency. Okay,
Okay.
and for that we can have many different types of explanations, right? So a classic example, just to get through this quickly, is if you see someone running down the road, okay, there are many ways to describe what's going on. Okay, the axiological way is, say, they're running for a bus, right? But there's a nomological way or a scientific way, all right,
Right.
which is to describe the contractions of muscles and the
thought so.
the information being passed between the brain and the muscle in order
Sure.
to contract, in order to make them run. Now, those are two, as far as I can see, they're both information. They both involve
Okay.
consciousness. Okay. But one is excluded under your definition,
Okay, so
Okay.
meaning that your definition is very
No. The
restrictive.
difference is meaning.
Meaning, right.
Sure, the difference is agency.
So
It's not meaning,
Right.
it's agency.
I want to
Yeah.
make an
It's
analogy
agency. Okay,
here.
so the tree is loaded with information, but if there's no one to dissect the tree and think about the tree,
Does
then there's no agency to extract the information from the tree. Something like that?
well, no, I
Right,
can
and you're
make
saying
an
that that's
analogy.
not information.
I really want
Hang
to
on a
make
second,
this
Mark.
analogy.
Let me get through this bit.
Okay,
So that
fine.
then you're saying that there is no information. But if there is a consciousness there that does decipher the tree, then it is information in the tree.
The way I'm using the word, yes.
Okay, that's great. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so the whole tree falls in the forest doesn't make a sound, right? And I mentioned that earlier. So the way that people use sound, okay, some people define it as the vibration of your eardrum. So if there is no one to hear something, it is not a sound and it is vibrations in the air. To other people, they define sound as vibrations in the air, and then you would say, yes, there is a sound because the vibrations in the air. So what I'm getting from you to make that analogy to sound is that if you see the term information to refer to when it actually hits another mind, then it is information. Yeah. I would refer to that as communication rather than information.
Fair.
I think that the information still exists. It's just it's never communication if it never hits another mind or
Right.
another thing to receive it, basically. But I understand if you want to use information to say, hey, it's when a transmitter of a mind sends information and a receiver, collects that information on the other end. That is information. Totally fair. Fine with that.
I'm going to work on how I say this. I don't know what to say differently right now, but thank you both for your input. It was educational at least.
Well,
Okay,
the
so
good word was communication there, because communication is necessarily a two-way process.
This
Right.
is deep.
And even then,
I hope so.
communication, that's
That's
also a little.
information.
I can give an
Well-
example.
well, you're
So-
speaking. Keep going.
If a book is written many years ago and it's comprised of different stories written about and written at different periods of time, but there was a way for it to contain information that proved that it was outside of its time domain by means it predicts the future and various other different ways of proving that it's encoded to prove that there was an intelligent being behind it that was universal throughout it. Is that information, or does it require an interpreter to be
I get
considered
the answer
information?
first on this one. It's not information until the right person reads it.
And it's because Mark will never open his eyes and ears to interpret it, does that make it not information?
Why are you picking on me? No, look, information doesn't necessarily have to be true. I can lie and say, like, P-Town's a great guy that doesn't, insult me at every turn. I could completely lie. That information isn't true. It's still being communicated, received, and understood. So even
Still communication.
Right. It's still communication of something. Communication does not necessarily have to be the truth. So someone could have just absolutely, made up everything in this book. It doesn't make it true.
Right.
How
But
to
if it's
not
written
talk about the Bible.
written outside of the time domain, if it's one author written over the course of millennia,
Who was the author?
centuries, God.
Really?
This is
But
like
I don't want to ruin it for you.
So Matthew, Mark,
no.
Luke,
This
and
is
John.
kind of like.
Okay, go.
No, this is almost like a kind of bad, translation of an anime movie where they're speaking all Japanese and someone could be translating the movie to you and using the most incorrect translation where it's trying to tell one story and it's actually saying another thing.
Well, it's not
Exactly
actually
my point.
Japanese if Mark can't understand it, because information
That's not
can't
the
be
point.
information.
But I can
Jenna,
understand
you
it.
know what you just justified is my assertion of an intended reader.
Yeah, but I think
must
that
be.
also exists. I think that point also exists.
I didn't mean to
Mainly
belittle
because-
your thing, Jenna. Sorry.
But So basically, there's the cultural part of it and the historical part of it, right? So, yes, I love anime, right? And she's definitely
I
right.
touched a nerve. I touched a nerve.
She's definitely right
Yeah,
that
pick
a
on the
lot of
Bible all you want. How dare you hassle anime?
right.
Hey, I used to be semi still. Oh, go ahead. I'm placating.
No
Go
problem.
ahead.
So what I was saying was, she's right, because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the translations, they don't take into consideration a lot of cultural aspects, right? And because of that, we'll read certain things, right? Some of the information that's being conveyed to us, and what we're seeing on the screen doesn't necessarily fit with that, right? But we know something is missing. I just wanted to say that.
If you're paying
Bingo.
attention, you might notice something is missing. Here's one of the things I noticed was missing. The English language is a bastard of several languages. That's just the fact of the matter. And we carried a lot of expressions and ideas from other cultures into the language, and we kept whole cloth expressions. Now, the expressions sometimes they get morphed over time. The expression evolves, right? Like the way we use the F bomb, very evolved. Not what it meant in the first place at all, right? Here's one of such
I
examples.
don't like that word.
P-Town is interrupting and being an ass.
It's just
Sorry.
No, I'm telling you, I'm using a phrase. It's not personal. P-Town is being an ass. P-Town spoke like an ass. P-Town brayed like an ass. P-Town had the jawbone of an ass. There's the
Some evolving to
complete
do.
etymology. That's the complete etymology going back to its origination. That person has the jawbone of an ass. Okay? Now, Samson slayed 10,000 with the jawbone of an ass. What does that mean?
Well, whatever it means today, so it basically means that...
It means the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The words evolve and everything evolves. That's Richard Dawkins
wrote
that to us.
Sure.
By inventing...
Sure, but my point is... My point is, the original story is saying everybody thought he was a fool.
This is the perfect opportunity, Richard, to do the Adam to Noah thing, because we have these guys here. So basically, have you guys ever gone through? So each name has a meaning behind it, and if you just do the genealogy from Adam to Noah, and what each word means, you can comprise kind of an idea. I'm telling you, this is a perfect crowd for it.
Do you mean
because
etymology? Not.
We're talking about how the English translation is not very good and all that. Well, let's just do it right here. It's only 10 words, and let's just, as Christians, atheists, and Madsonites, let's just see what happens.
Hello, Pixie.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's take a consensus vote. Those on the panel working... I don't want to go alphabetically. Top left to bottom right as we read English. One at a time. Please, if you would, people, a simple yes or no would do. Sarah?
Let's take a look at how...
P-Town, not your turn. Shut up.
Oh.
What are you wanting me to answer? I kind of zoned out.
You'd like to comply with P-Town's request that we go ahead and do an etymology from the text? You'd rather not?
I know all about it. I've got it in front of me. I've heard that. I don't need to discuss it.
Okay, Batman.
I'm open.
Jenna.
Honestly, I'm 50-50.
Okay, we got 0.5 votes so far. P-Town, your answer is obvious. Mark Reid.
No, I don't want to study the etymology of names in the
Simos.
No, etymological fallacy is...
And Sean. Thank you.
I'm actually going to say thank you, Richard, for having me on. It was nice to see everybody.
You're a blast,
Jenna,
man.
that hair is absolutely wonderful. And someone please kick P-Town in the nuts again for me.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sean.
have a good night.
See you,
Okay.
Sean.
Good to meet
I'll
you,
just
Sean.
See you,
address
Pete
your
Tong.
last point, Richard, which is I blame Michael Jackson for making good mean bad, or bad mean
That's
good.
right.
Right.
Something,
Uh,
yeah.
But I just
And
love
walking backwards as walking forward.
I just love
yeah,
that
he
Richard
wasn't the first,
Dawkins
but
invented a word for meme, which was the way an idea evolved over the centuries, and then the word that he created evolved to mean something else. I love that. That is a beautiful thing. It just shows that our words that we create and we make up these words, they are so fluid and they never mean the same things in 20 years, much less 100 or 1,000 years.
And by the way, a bitchin' way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so P-Town, I hope you gathered that we're not doing it with 2.5 negative votes and only half a positive vote. So there you go. I will dedicate a show to you at some other date at your request, anytime you like, not now. Okay, so if I can show that from outside of my experience, communication happened, translating an idea that I could understand in a way that I could understand it. So, not in Japanese.
Right.
And then I went to investigate if that idea was true in reality, that is to say, falsifiable. And it stood. And it was falsifiable, yet it was not falsified, but was actual. Then I can say true knowledge was communicated. Now, I don't have the mechanism. I admit it.
So, this is a really weird question, but we use something called protocols to transmit information without knowledge of the information. And the way that I can explain protocols most clearly is, just say you are in a German bookstore buying a Japanese book, right? So you go into the store, you see this Japanese book, you want to buy it for your Japanese friend. You don't understand Japanese. The German store owner doesn't understand Japanese. He doesn't understand English. You don't understand German. But what you can do is take the book up. He holds up a number of fingers or points to a number. You basically give him the money. He gives you the book. And what we've got is an exchange of information where neither party understands the information or each other. Right, so that's a protocol. It's basically a way of doing things that you can be understood by both sides, kind of thing.
Okay, so it's storage and transfer.
Kind of, yeah. So the information is stored in the book. In this case, the two sides understand the protocol of how to transmit that information, but they don't understand the information itself, and they can still transmit it without even understanding what it is.
Sure.
So would you see that still as information, or would you need that book to get to the Japanese friend in order for that to be considered information?
Okay, it's theoretical information, not usable.
Right, so that wouldn't be actual information until it reaches...
Not to me, it's not.
No, that's fine,
And I'm doing something a forklift could do, I'm just picking it up and moving it, essentially. I'm pretty stupid here.
Well, yeah, that's true, I guess. That is true of protocols. They do just move information around. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a fair point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So my position is the protocol's position. The protocol does not understand other than the task. Just the task. That's it. Okay.
No, that's cool.
And I would put in my understanding the words Holy Spirit as equal to protocol.
The Holy Spirit is equal to protocol.
Yeah, in your example, yeah.
Okay.
You believe in the Holy Spirit, Richard?
I understand it as an unintelligent transference device. It has no personality. It has no consciousness. It's just performing a function. It doesn't even know what's going on.
Well, he is a Christian, P-Town.
Oh, come on, Jenna. Don't kick me in the balls.
Well,
man.
Sean asked her to, so
well, that's true.
It's not really her fault.
They're dipping.
Janice is doing the will of the people, and
Right.
That's why I'm here.
People of
politician,
P-Town has the balls of an arse.
Not sure
Richard,
what
Was
the
I
it
just want to
expression.
was it
thank you for
ass or
letting me.
donkey? Can't
I gotta
remember.
run. It was a pleasure.
And
Thank
that
It
you.
was a
that
pleasure.
was meant for
Please,
Sarah.
Take care,
please,
Sarah.
please comment on a video, any video, Sarah, and we'll exchange emails if you trust me that much, and we'll do a show sometime in depth of understanding of what you're actually saying.
Okay. I think I put like 5 comments on the videos I watched yesterday. So it's probably in your inbox.
Awesome.
Have a good
I'll
night, Sarah.
respond. Yeah.
Have a good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
All right, good night.
Okay. Then there were 6. All right. Where were we?
So how does the Holy Spirit work exactly? Like, what kind of mechanistic processes are you talking about? This is because you asked me to challenge you.
You voted against learning about it.
I voted against learning about it.
Yeah.
How
does that
is,
mean?
How is names
Never mind.
somehow?
I was going to show you a demonstration of the Holy Spirit in the Word, and let you do it.
In the Word?
Yeah.
That's circular thinking.
No, the Holy Spirit's in the Word.
Okay.
Sword of the Spirit.
Well,
it's not
either
how-
way, I'm still confused about excluding science. Why do you exclude science when you're talking about information, Richard?
Why do I exclude science? I don't know where I did. I need that explained.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Well,
that
like I said, you're excluding information as being nomological, which is to say, without consciousness.
Okay. In its highest form, we're going to call it communication, right?
Right. Okay.
That communication includes 2 conscious or more, right? On the
No,
receiving and sending
that's not-
end of it.
You're
And
doing it
then-
again. You're baking in consciousness to the definition, and I want to know why you're doing that, because then when you talk about communication of the Holy Spirit, if that's information, you're just baking in consciousness to the Holy Spirit.
Okay, I'm gonna have trouble avoiding that. I'm seriously trying.
I don't
But
think
I'm
you
not-
can avoid it by your definition, and
I'm not
I
sure-
just wanted to know why the definition.
Okay, I'm just going to
excludes
continue on then.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
maybe it'll make sense to you, and maybe I'm just stupid. At the lower echelon than that is complexity. The letters that are used, what order they in, the spacing in between words, all that complexity, the overall message. Below that is individual data points. The letter A means the sound ah, data point. But the letter A is not communication by itself. It's just I can say, okay, there's the letter A. That's interesting. I know the history of it. But it's not going to tell me anything complex about what a person's trying to say.
I would agree.
It may, obviously, but that's besides the point. Again, I just want to know why. Look, how to say this? To say, well, information is a language. Well, we know languages are invented by people who are
Sure.
conscious, right?
Sure.
So you can't say that trees falling are information.
I don't think he said that information was a language.
Well, he just used the example of A.
Well, that's
Right.
just an
Information.
example.
Right,
It's just
exactly.
that's
So that's begging
an
the question as well.
that's
Because we
an
know
data
that
point, a
we know
singular
that's
data
invented
point.
by an agent. So what I'm
Yeah, but
getting
it doesn't.
is
It doesn't
why
matter.
is- go ahead.
It doesn't matter what letter represents the sound that represents an idea, and what combination represents the idea. The idea justifies. There is no meaning of cat without the animal.
Right, a cat exists without the idea of cat, does it not?
Sure, but and I could say gato, and I still said the same thing.
Right. So I'm just saying you are putting information at the level of concept, not at the level of the truth or objective reality.
Okay.
Why would he? I mean, you can still transmit information between 2 people. It doesn't have to be true.
No, but that's not the only thing that's
then
information.
yeah, but he has specified that if the information being transmitted is in fact true, then it is knowledge being transmitted. I think you made that clear.
Well, if you're justified to believe it's true, yeah.
Sure.
Then it's
Sure.
not.
Falsifiable
I'm
and then
talking about
justified.
Richard's
Yeah.
definition, not mine. So
Okay. So, and what I'm saying is, now when you call something like the Holy Spirit information, or a protocol, which is another form of information,
no.
How is a protocol
no,
information?
No, protocol is not
because somebody
information.
understands it. by your definition, therefore it's information.
No part of the protocol understands anything.
Yeah,
No,
it
I
doesn't.
didn't say the protocol did. I said somebody understands the protocol.
Yes. So
Well,
just
someone designed the protocol in that case, yeah.
And somebody understand. It doesn't matter whether they designed it or not, because that doesn't make it information by your definition. If someone
Right.
understands the protocol, then it becomes information, right? If you don't understand it, it's not information.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. When the intended receiver is able to decode, and then there is communication.
Right.
Everything
Okay.
before that is information at different levels, at different levels of complexity and different fractals. Different ways to break down.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So again, you're just imposing consciousness onto this understanding.
For
right?
communication, yes.
Yeah, even for communication or information, whichever way you want to put it. If we now,
Nope,
I'll throw out
I
information
stopped.
now. I'll throw out information. Let's just use communication.
Great.
Okay. So just using communication, then you are saying that communication must necessarily be to a conscious agent.
From a conscious agent.
From
Also.
a conscious agent. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we decipher that anything? I mean, how can we know that the concept we are receiving is generated by reality as opposed to our own minds?
That's falsifiability.
And what's falsifiable about how can we know what is falsifiable with axiological definitions, with definitions which are inherently concepts?
Whether or not
Wrong.
those concepts adhere to reality in some way.
Okay, so does reality necessarily have to be conscious in order to understand it?
No.
Okay, so then the communication can come from something not conscious to something conscious, correct?
No, the information could, but the communication can't.
Well, it's not communication if it comes from something which isn't conscious.
It's not communication if it doesn't come from something. I hate double negatives. It is only information when it comes from some consciousness and is received by some consciousness. They are communicating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So, in other words, there's nothing, we cannot get communication from nature unless God exists.
Nature doesn't communicate things.
Okay.
It
right,
does
I don't-
communicate that God exists.
I don't
Unless
know.
you want to say like conscious beings are part of nature, in which case conscious beings can communicate with each other. Sure.
Sure. Okay, so when we see a tree, we don't know that there's a tree there in reality.
Yeah, we're right back to Mark's, tree
Exactly.
falls in the woods. Right.
Exactly. And I have a problem with this because your assumption of communication takes out the fact that there is an inanimate object which is giving me information which I can understand and manipulate as concepts.
Yes, but there's a consciousness involved in there. You.
Yes, right. But it didn't come from a consciousness. It came from a tree.
No, okay, that's the whole problem I have with that tree falls in the wood thing. It uses the word here, as I think Mark was trying to point out, to create an argument on purpose of sound wave versus eardrum. Okay? So if you take it as vibration, the literal thing that causes sounds, the argument is over. There is no argument. It definitely made a vibration.
It's not really like the whole point that it's trying to address before going to even the sound versus vibration thing is that if nobody observes it, how can we tell with absolute certainty that it actually happened? And we kind of can't.
Yes.
There's a number of philosophical things. There's uniformity of nature that we can appeal to. There's
Sure.
the idea that there's a number of things you can appeal to, but it's more just how can you have certainty of the unobserved? And the answer is
Right.
you can't really, but we can make a belief based upon some pretty strong epistemological methods
Right.
that say, hey, yeah, we've seen trees fall, we've seen the after effects, we know trees fall, so if it did fall, the uniformity of nature sort of says, hey, yes, it would fall, but it's
Sure.
it's just a thinking problem kind of thing. That's all it is.
Right. I don't know if any of that was satisfactory for you, Simos.
Not really, no, because
I didn't think so.
I think I think by trying to define communication this way,
I have a
then
question.
again, or information, then we're just falling
You know,
into
if
the
you
trap
gave me
of
better
making
definitions, I would just adopt them.
yeah, I mean, sure, but I don't think that's going to help right now, right? Because Shannon information is good enough for me, right? But that's very much on a an atomistic level, right? And that's what science uses, right? It's nomological. It's not assuming there's consciousness, and it's not giving answers which have the assumption baked into them of consciousness, right? They may be conscious, but that's besides the point, right? And that's
Simos,
how you can tell a
So,
difference between things
are
which
you
are
atheist, Simos,
hang on,
or what
hang
are
on.
you?
That's how you can tell the difference between things that are conceptual and things that are not conceptual. Right? And now I don't
Seems
know any
fair.
other way to do it than that. If you have a way to tell, please enlighten me, of course, and we'll definitely talk about it. But this is basically just the difference between an inductive set of reason a priori or a posteriori reasoning. So thank you very much, anyway, for letting me say that.
I do
And
have
yes,
a
yes, I
question,
am an atheist,
Ramos.
Peter. Go ahead.
Well, you're talking like a theist for a second.
How
Okay, I
so?
don't know how, but
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know
So I'm talking out of ignorance here, but isn't there, when it comes to receiving information, shouldn't there be some kind of protocol? By protocol, I mean like a system in which whatever sound or whatever being used to transfer that information in place in order for it to be considered information. Is that necessary? Like if
That's translation. Yes,
I
translation's
don't think so.
necessary.
No,
The Word of
not to make
God.
it
so
information. No.
so like for example, like when birds communicate, right? They make their chirps and stuff like that.
Birds have agency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
transmitter. Yeah.
Okay. So what what where does the protocol come in that allows the bird to say, hey, this is what
Sure.
I have to do based on these
Yeah,
we're
it's
gonna
induction. It's the consciousness that's receiving,
In
and the consciousness which is passing the information, and they through induction realize that there is some message being transmitted, and in fact you can do that between species, not just between single families or tribes or even
sure.
single species, right?
but that's not
So
Um,
necessary for for the sequence of chirps to be considered
Yeah,
information,
he's
right?
talking about encryption and
it is,
decryption.
yes.
He's talking about how there must be an understanding of almost like the language where the bird knows
Yeah,
to send this chirp means this and how the other one sends this. So what you're talking about is encryption and decryption. So the
they don't have to know it, but yeah,
Mhm.
well, yeah, they kind of do, Simos, because if information has to be
they don't
transmitted,
know.
well,
See, that's why I'm asking the question, right?
well,
Because
I'm talking about information in Richard's sort of sense of the way that he's
Oh,
using
okay.
that word, right? Because if either the transmitter, like the first bird, doesn't know how to encrypt it properly, it comes out as, it's trying to send, hey, I found some food as a chirp, and the other one hears, I'm really horny, I want a mate or something, right? Then the information isn't transmitted. It's wrong information kind of thing. Or
Sure.
but I
would you
think
consider
Simos
that?
meant they didn't have to understand it as in their instincts are going to make them react in a certain way, whether it's cognitive processing or not. That it could be at some other level and might not be fair to call it understand.
Ooh,
Oh, knowledge, which is the word
would that
Mark
Yeah,
used.
would that be
yeah.
true? Would they have to
Yeah,
respond to their instincts? I'm not
I
sure
don't
that's
know that, but I
true.
know this. You
I
guys got
believe so.
6 minutes to wrap this up.
You
Okay.
can't
Yes,
wrap
I believe that's the
Simos up
case.
in 6 minutes. What are you talking
I
about?
I
believe that's
know
the case,
it's
Mark. I
com-
think that
I'm
the most.
sorry, I can't.
this is.
I
I
don't
believe that's the
understand.
case. This is the way induction works. You don't
Okay, so to wrap
necessarily have
this up,
to have an understanding of what's being transmitted. All you have to do is know that you've reacted to something in a particular way and it's worked in the past. That's enough.
I'll go ahead and wrap it up for you all. 42. And now everyone can give their closing thoughts.
Should we go like just from left to right, top to bottom?
Now, let's start with Batman. We'll just work our way around down. Go ahead, Batman. Closing thoughts.
Okay,
Shill what you
well,
want to, whatever you got.
thanks for having me again, as usual, Richard, on your journey to demolish doctrine. I think you're making a step towards that every single day. However that might manifest at the end of your journey. So I'm definitely hoping to be around to see it.
Thank you very much. Mark, Mr. Reid, sir.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me on, Richard. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for talking. Thanks for the insults and just stuff, P-Town. It's always a pleasure to meet a charitable and lovely Christian that calls you names and, acts really mean. It's always wonderful to see that. Anyway, slight dig, but, I think it's well deserved after that. Thank you so much. I think the main point I want to give is that we do a lot. Everybody does confirmation bias. Everybody has these ideas in the back of their head, and it's really hard to remove yourself from it. And I understand that totally. It's really hard. We want to try and do that, because if we're just going to believe what you have believed in the past without challenging that, and I think it's wonderful that Richard's running a challenge me on this, because that's what we want to do. We want to challenge our preconceived beliefs and go, is this epistemologically, or is this justified by the evidence and the things that I have at my disposal, or is there other possibilities? And it's no shame and nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't know for the moment. I'm going to reserve judgment until I have a better idea of what's going on. And for that point, that's exactly what dark matter is. We're not just leaping to, hey, it's some kind of quantum interaction, or it's these particles, and let's call them, spoofed particles. No, we're saying it's dark. We don't know what it is. That we have no idea, and that's okay. Not knowing is fine. Thank you.
Oh, Captain, my Captain, Mr. Funk.
Oh, yeah, beg your pardon. Oh, sorry, right, I'm live. Yeah, no, thanks for letting us in. You bring up some interesting points, and I'll try and dig out the best definition for information I possibly can for you. But obviously,
by the way, I'm going with standards established by Werner Gitt. If anyone wanted to reference that, that's what I'm using as Werner Gitt. Werner Gitt.
Werner. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know. Yeah. Anyway, yes, but obviously, like all these things, the words that we use have different meanings in particular ways that we are using it, and that's really where a lot of bias comes in that we don't understand or we don't realize that we're introducing. So when I listen to somebody say a sentence, I'm interpreting it from my point of view with my definitions. Like when you said information, right? I then went, oh, hang on a minute, that's not what I think is information. So why is there a difference? Then we had to have a conversation about why there's a difference. Then I find out in your definition it has this agency, a condition, which it doesn't in mine. And that might be fine in, say, psychological analysis, right? I'm sure they would agree that the information in psychological analysis has some component of consciousness, because, of course, when you say psychological, that is implying that it's to do with the mind. Right?
True.
But when you say in science, right, and specifically the hard science of physics, you can never infer consciousness from information. That's just one of the basic points. So that's not to say that it doesn't exist, but it's just not considered as the first option, because obviously naturalism is an implied state, at least metaphorical, metalogical naturalism is an implied precondition for doing the science of physics.
And based on this very conversation, I will, from this point forward, be using the word communication.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Thank you,
although
as well.
Again, communication also suffers from the same problem as well. But that's another point. But it's a better word than information, because information in mathematics also has a different meaning as well. So,
no, not maths.
I told you couldn't wrap science up in 6 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Jenna.
I don't have really super intellectual thing to say, but thank you, Richard, for having me on. It is my first time being on your channel, so I appreciate it.
pleasure always. P-Town, without insults.
Well, I just want to say I love you all, especially Mark. Um, I don't agree with a lot of the things said, and I don't understand some of it. I think that the quote "never you can't infer consciousness from information" is not true, Simos. I believe that God wrote a book where we can clearly see that the information provided has been encrypted, and through that encryption, you can decipher and confirm that God is real. And I want you all to see it because, again, I love you, especially Mark.
Okay,
Have a good
I
night,
don't think
everybody.
I don't think I ever said you can never infer consciousness. I said it's never inferred in physics as the first state of of belief because physics assumes metaphorical naturalism.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Because
misquote you, Simos.
That's all right. That's
Simos.
fine. That's fine. No, thank you.
okay, we'll allow that because directly addressed. And the man of much silence, Flow State.
I'm glad I made it in time for the show. My name's Taylor. My channel is Flow State. You should check it out since he's ending the broadcast right now, and so y'all are missing out on a lot of good stuff. Yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Thank you all for coming voluntarily to try to make me better. I deeply appreciate that. It touches me in ways that I can't express, and I'm forever indebted. I don't know what to say. Thank you all so much. Kick yourselves out. I don't do that.
Thank you, Richard.
Till next time, guys. I look forward to the day that we're all great friends.
You take care, mate.
Peace.